the operations on the flight deck they're pretty gnarly, and so I think I've seen like multiple aircraft kind of like crash on the flight deck. I've seen people get blown off the deck, people get sucked in like intakes, and I myself almost got sucked in the intake. I had a buddy who saved my life because I was like brand new, and I was like, first time up there, I was like a deer in the headlights, and I walked right into an intake, and I was literally getting sucked in. He like grabbed me at the last second, and I was like, so that was like, a culture shock, or just like, whoa, like I could have died right there. I could, so that was like definitely like a crazy experience to me. The best way I can describe it was like, I'm playing football with airplanes. That's the best way I described it, because you're ducking and dodging and you're rolling out on the floor and, and doing it, and everything's like rush. So that's where I started, okay, now it's getting kind of real, and then even whenever I did get deployed after that, we were kind of doing the same thing on aircraft, but now it was like during the time of war, so now we're loading the plane, the AOs are loading the airplanes up with ordnance. They go on missions, they come back. Okay, cool. So we knew, what they were doing. We knew what our job was. Whenever they had missions, maybe an aviation electrician had to fix that airplane, get it up for operations. They go on missions, this and that. So we knew we had an integral part to play, of course, because without us, that plane wouldn't be up and can't do their missions that they got to do.
Welcome back, everybody. My guest this time followed his uncle's lead. He enlisted in the Navy in 2001 as an aviation electrician. As he closed in on the end of his first enlistment, he asked for a rate change to computers or IT. The Navy said no, so he got out. He then went to the firefighter EMT profession. But unfortunately, at this point in time, he was already drinking extremely heavily. And he got hired as a firefighter, but then a past DUI came back to haunt him, along with a subsequent traffic accident, which basically derailed this career. He got his drinking under control, and he went back to what had been his lifelong or a long-time passion, which was bodybuilding and working out. Today, he's a professional bodybuilder. He's also a fitness trainer. His story is definitely some lows and some highs. So let's get into it. Here's episode 134 with DaJuan Freeman. What'd you train today?
Today I did chest, shoulders, and triceps, so push day.
How many days a week?
I train right now, weight training 5 days a week, cardio.
Can I get you a little bit closer to that?
Weight training 5 days a week, cardio every single day.
Now, for you, when you say cardio, because I know that that's one of the teeter-totters for some people, like, oh, if I'm weight training, I don't want to do a lot of cardio because I'm going to lose my size. But when you say you do cardio, what is it?
So for me, when I do cardio, I do low intensity or steady state cardio. So I monitor my heart rate. For me, my beats per minute is 134 beats per minute. My heart rate, I'm not going at a super fast pace, staying in my target heart rate zone for burning fat. It could be incline walking on a treadmill, no hands. So that way my body is actually doing the majority of the work. Same thing this morning, I did Stairmaster, 30 minutes, stayed at my target heart rate, burned about 150 calories, so just something as simple like that, not like running balls to the wall, so to speak, because I am trying to preserve lean muscle mass.
Got it.
Stay in the fat burning zone. And yeah. So I'm not one of those people that like run from cardio. I actually love cardio, and then in that 30 minutes or an hour, whatever I'm doing, like I'm just zoned out, like whatever. I'm watching podcasts, I'm watching movies, my series, something, and I actually like that. That's my alone time because I'm so busy. I have kids, family, and it's like nothing, just blank and just do the cardio. And that's my little time, so I have no problem with that one.
It is funny though, but if more people kind of looked at it that way, if you just looked at, oh, I don't want to be on the treadmill, or oh, I don't want to be on the Stairmaster, but if you looked at it the opposite way, that's your time alone.
Yes.
For the most part, nobody's talking to you.
Yep.
You got earbuds in. You can ignore everybody. You know, so if you've got that 30 to 45 minutes, take that time for being by yourself.
Exactly. And then, yeah, I definitely need that. We all need that, most definitely, yeah.
So let's start with you as a young man. Where's hometown? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in West Covina, California. Well, yeah, West Covina, then raised in La Puente area, and area was like, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. We did have a lot of gangs in my area, and it was a majority Hispanic community, and I was one of the only African American communities, families in there. So we didn't get treated the best, and I have my fair share of run-ins with gangs. Couldn't go down that street, had to duck and dodge, and sometimes we did, had to fight a few times, hit up by different gangs, got guns pulled on me. What are you doing in this area? I was like, I live here, so that was like, as a kid, and a teenager, that was like, in a low sense, like kind of traumatizing, because it was like, I'm trying to get to school, I'm trying to get home, and, you get guns put on you because you're, you don't look like everybody else in the community, so that's what I kind of experienced a little bit growing up, said lots of fights, and even at my school too, it was sometimes like back in the the late 90s, and I graduated in 2000, so the late 90s, we low-key had like little riots the blacks versus the Hispanics. We had a lot of that stuff going on. It was one time in my area where something dramatic happened, and then, if you were black around that time, and, if you were walking home from school, we had a lot of kids get shot, get killed, just walking in the neighborhood, so it wasn't like super like in the hood or in LA where that was happening every day. But that was an occurrence during that time where that happened. And I had to like obviously, get rides home that time. My mom picked me up, my friends picked me up, because I didn't want to get, just trying to get from point A to point B. I didn't want to get killed or shot or end up in a hospital, stuff of that nature. So I had to battle and navigate that growing up in that area as well.
Were your mom and dad from West Covina or that area?
So my mom was from, I think from LA area. My dad as well. I know they met, they met in Mount Sac or something like that when they were in college, when they were both young. I know that. So I think they just ultimately ended up there in that city, but they weren't from there originally.
Brothers, sisters?
I have one younger brother. And so he actually was training with me earlier. He's in his late 30s, now he's trying to get in shape, transition in his life. And now he's trying to be like big brother, so that's pretty cool. And that's kind of how we bond. As kids, we were like mortal enemies growing up. Big brother, little brother thing. My thing was like Legos playing, and he would like look at me and just destroy him, So we had our little spats kind of growing up. And then as we kind of got older, I started having like more friends, and he couldn't he couldn't hang with that group because I was a senior and he was like a freshman. They don't want the freshmen hanging around. But then we kind of like grew apart a little bit, for many years. And then we didn't really start coming back until like now in this, time in our life. Older, but right now we bond over weight training. We don't really say nothing much, right? But we just go in there and just hit it and just like, we needed that. Yeah. And then he'd go on about his day, and then me too, so that's pretty cool that we're bonding like that now.
So where in West Covina were you living as a young man before you moved to La Puente?
I can't remember briefly. I know I was born in West Covina. I think we lived in Bassett or Baldwin Park prior when I was like really young. Then we ultimately end up moving to La Puente.
Because that's where you're hitting home. Because I grew up in Baldwin Park.
Oh, okay.
And so thinking about that in those areas, I completely relate to what you're saying, especially with the old, generation Mexican gangs in that area at that time. Where'd you end up going to high school?
Went to Workman High School.
Okay. And as a young man, I know we're going to get into this, and you played football, but were you always interested in sports growing up?
Well, I know I came from like a sports family. I know because my uncles, they went to my same high school, or I went to their same high school. I know my uncle was really good in sports. He played basketball. I think his nickname was like Mr. Fantastic or something like that. And so, when you go into that school and they know you as that family, you kind of like low-key have like a legacy to live up, or is he going to do the same, or is he going to have the same skills or something like that? So yeah, I was, and then obviously in my household, Laker household, Dodger household, right? Any of the Los Angeles teams, that was our household. So I was always, even though I didn't play it really that much as a kid, I think I played baseball briefly, But yeah, I was very interested in sports because that's my whole household, whole family was in it, So I knew I was going to eventually get into it.
Were you thinking that sports was going to be something for you as an adult? Take you to college, anything like that?
I was one of those awkward, goofy kids. And so that was my thing. I was like a very late bloomer. And since I was like awkward and goofy, I kind of ran funny. And then when I did try out for like sports, I didn't make like a lot of the teams like in junior high school. I remember I was like, how come I didn't make the baseball team, right? And I'm thinking like, I'm thinking in my head I'm good, right? But then I guess I wasn't good enough to make the junior high school, right? The team, basketball or baseball or football. And I was like, what the heck? How come I'm not making these sports? And then I do remember my mom and my dad saying, you run kind of goofy. I was like, huh? But not knowing I'm flat-footed, right? You're just a kid, you're just running. So I guess that was me awkward. And I had like very awkward stages. I had a like little chubby stage, little fat stage. And then whenever I went to that stage, I kind of got bullied and like teased a little bit, as well. And so that always kind of stuck with me, looking at like, hindsight, like where I'm in now, I always use stuff like that to like motivate me, right? I still remember to this day where I didn't make the junior high school baseball team. And then I look back now at 42 years old, I'm like, yeah, remember you didn't pick me for the team? I'm number 3 in the world in bodybuilding now. Like I use stuff like that to kind of, fuel me like in my life, right? Where I wasn't good enough or I was neglected or I was teased and picked on. I use that as fuel like 30 years in the future, like to now, so I'm always one of them cats. Feel like I have something to prove or, so that's always been like my mentality, so that's why I think like, again, why I'm so good at what I do now, why I'm so motivated, because I'll use stuff like that from my childhood to fuel me and get me better,
Did you ever go down the path of any of the individual sports like wrestling or anything like that?
No, not then. I do remember briefly like junior high to make the teams. Then when I went to high school, I played basketball briefly, still wasn't that good. Then I got into football, and then that was actually pretty fun because it was my first time playing it. And then I got roughed up a little bit in the beginning. I was like, oh, this is different. But I loved it because I loved the contact, the banging, and to release some aggression. And that's when I really got into like weight training. I took all the little bullying that I got, and then I used that aggression to like, on the field with the pads and then in the weight room. So that's where it like really started. And I was like, I can use it as an outlet, to battle anything that I'm kind of dealing with or anything. So that's what I really loved, just that aspect of it.
Were you undersized or average size when you look back at, your friends and stuff in high school playing football?
Yeah.
Because you've mentioned bullying, and I'm just kind of wondering, you're obviously a decent sized man today. Yeah. Were you undersized as a kid?
I was tall and so I went to stage after I kind of got out of my chubbiness. Then I think I was just like tall and linky, right? So I remember it was different stages. So I remember that stage. Then I remember because I was playing tight end and defensive end. And I'm like, at that time in high school, I was like maybe 170, 180, maybe 190 max. I remember my coach was saying, we need you up to 200, 220. And I was like, so I tried my best, but even though I didn't hit it, I was still like aggressive. And because I ended up, once I knew like weights was like my outlet, I remember at that time, I was like the second strongest person on the team. It was another person that was stronger than me was a lineman. And then me being in that position, they're like, dude, he's actually really strong. So I just use that like, okay, I'm going to just, use the weights as like my thing. And so even though I was kind of undersized, I was really strong because that was just like what I just honed in on. I can just release anything with the weights and make me better.
Did you find as soon as you got up underneath a barbell that it was natural for you and you were naturally a little bit stronger than your friends?
Yeah. I definitely found it like easy. It was easy for me to start really putting on muscle and getting stronger. So that actually became like that natural, progression for me. And then I think another guy, he was shorter. We were like the same. He was the running back. And then me and him were like the 2 second strongest on the team, even though he was like 5'0", and I was probably I was 5'2", I don't know, maybe, because right now I'm like listed as 6'1". So I probably grew a little bit after that, So, but me and him were neck and neck as being strong in the lineman, of course. Bro, you're 300 pounds. Okay, of course you're gonna be stronger than that. So we were like really tripping on that one,
What were you as far as the other side of the house on academics? How'd you like school from an academic standpoint?
I was always really smart. Without even trying, I remember I was in all like the smart classes, the GATE classes, the AP classes. I was always gifted. I had to go to other schools. Okay, I got my regular school, then all right, you guys are going on this bus and go to other school. So at the time, I didn't really know what that was. I was like, okay, cool. And it was like all like the other smart kids, right? So I was always in that, even through junior high, I had all the AP classes, high school as well. And so I was always very knowledgeable, right? I always like loved knowledge, always loved learning. But it came to a point in high school, I remember at that time, it wasn't cool to be smart.
Of course not.
Right. And so at that time, I'm kind of struggling to like really fit in. Like, am I a jock? Am I the smart kids? Whatever. And so I remember, I think I played dumb for a little semester because I didn't want the hard classes no more. And I wanted to like really, so I was like trying hard to get like a B or a C in the AP classes. And then I played dumb. So then I told the counselor it was too much stress, whatever I said. And I got in regular classes, I was doing nothing and getting all A's, so I kind of figured out the little system from there, but I was still always very smart, so yeah. And then even to this day, like I'm such a like, free thinker. I love reading. I love self-education, getting better, reading books, so on and so forth. I love knowledge because, without knowledge, man, you can be just, you can listen to anybody tell you something and just like, okay, you just go along with it, which I feel like a lot of people in this world do that. But I'm like, I want to know the reason why. Right. I want to know why for myself, so I've always been that person that always did my research, so on and so forth. And then even like now in like my profession as bodybuilding and coaching, I went to school, I got my certifications, but I was still always hungry for more, so I always did my own research, this and that, so on and so forth, to like become a great nutrition coach and so on and so forth. That was all just self-taught and self-studying and learning the body and metabolism, everything, so I've always did my own legwork and research in that.
From your parents' perspective, as you were growing up, were they pushing academics, and what were they pushing for you as far as your adulthood? Was there, like, hey, you're going to go to college and all? I mean, was that kind of what was being drilled into you, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it was, but like, again, I think I hit like a part, what I told you, where I didn't want to be labeled as a smart kid, and so I wanted to be a jock. And looking back now, I should have went the whole smart route or whatever and took the AP, and took the SAT, but I just didn't do it. I kind of got in that little lazy stage, and I didn't want to give effort into it. So that was just, I think, my downfall into high school, why I didn't go to like a top college or something like that, so that was just my own fault of being lazy at that particular time, what I felt.
Did you go to college straight out of high school?
So yeah, so right after high school, I went to Mount Sac like a lot of people did. And again, that's when I started getting into partying stuff, right? Okay, I got a little freedom, right? So I start, going to clubs like I don't really think I was drinking then. I don't really remember. But I know we were partying like almost every night. And then I was slacking on my academics. And then at the time, I think I was working either at McDonald's or KB Toy Stores or both. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not really doing good in college right now, right? All I'm doing is like partying. So I think I was at maybe Mount Sac, maybe 1 or 2 semesters. And I was like, I got to do something better in my life. I don't like the path where I'm going on now, and then I do remember I had a couple uncles that were in the Navy, and at the time they were doing good in their lives. And I was like, okay, I think I want to go that route because right now I'm in this gray area. I don't know what to do.
Were your uncles active at that time?
No, they were both out.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what I think propelled me to go to the Navy. I was like, I need some direction in my life and need to get on the right track because I'm getting lazy, getting complacent, and and I just didn't want to end up like the gangs or whatever in my city. I knew I was smart enough, and I knew I was better than that, and my parents raised me better than that.
Did your mom or dad serve?
No.
And when you decided to start looking at the military, was the Navy the only option for you?
At the time, it was no war at the time, right? I went prior to 9/11. And I just know I was like, okay, I want to serve. I want to get, goal and direction in my life. But I don't want to go to war and fight. That was like my thing in case that did happen. That was my mentality. So I was looking at the Navy, maybe do that, find what you want to do with your life, go to school in it, and I know the GI Bill was going to pay for college and stuff like that. So that's what I specifically signed up for, was to get the GI Bill, and then also, again, serve my country and get goal and direction in my life.
But what I'm getting at is, when you went to talk to the recruiter, the only one you went to was straight to the Navy, or did you talk to other recruiters?
No, it was straight to the Navy, because I knew my uncles were in the Navy. And so I was like, if they were in the Navy, they're doing good with their lives, I'll just go that route. So I didn't even really look at the other branches. But in hindsight, right, I look back, I remember we were all in high school, we were taking ASVAB, me and my buddies. And then we had like all the other branches there. And then I remember this joke, cause we were making fun of like, they had Army, they had the Marine recruiters there. And I think the thing that kind of deterred me, because they had the high and tights, and I was like, and at the time I had like longer curly hair, and I was like, yeah, I can't do the haircut thing. So that's why I think in my head I mentally like excluded the Marines or the Army, because the high and tights. And I was like, I need to feel more myself, So I think that's why I didn't even elect to do that. And I was like, and then we even take the ASVAB serious. We were like, man, we're not going to the military. And then fast forward, I think that whole group of us guys, I think we all ended up going to the Navy. It was probably like 8 of us. Right. I remember we were sitting back making fun of the recruiters, and now we all in the Navy. Right. It was pretty funny, how that happened. I was like, they got us all,
Were you picking the brains of your uncles before you went in, finding out their advice and what they recommend for you once you went in?
Oh, yeah. I was definitely talking to them, and then at the time, one of my uncles, he was working in the computer field, and he had a really good, great job. And you think he was an IT. And so he was doing really well. My other uncle as well. I think at the time he was off of disability for work. I don't know what it was, but they ended up giving him a large settlement, whatever it may be. So at the time they were doing good. So I just asked them, like, hey, they was like, hey, it's a good career path, good career field, And then I seen the pride that one of my uncles, he was always that guy, always rocking the Navy ball cap, the Navy jackets. Well, watching all like the Navy football games. So, and I like that sense of pride that he had. And I was like, okay, I want to be a part of that. Right. And so that was like my the main reason why I just went, let me go to the Navy. I didn't want to look at no other branch of service, because I wanted to be in that lineage with my uncles,
Did you have a job in mind when you went to the recruiter, or when you took you took the ASVAB while you were in high school, even though you didn't plan to enlist. Did they make you retake the ASVAB?
Yeah, so when I did go, I think I was 19 years old, retook the ASVAB, and I scored pretty high, and I think I scored really well in like mechanical amplitude and a little bit of math. So I was kind of up there, and I was like, okay, cool. And so that's what I told him. I was like, I want to go maybe computers or IT, electrician route. I didn't really know 100% which one, but that route. Then I remember at the time they offered, you could be a corpsman, and I was like, I want to go computers or something, not knowing I was going to be years later a firefighter EMT, right? Maybe I should have picked that route, right? But who knows? We never know.
Hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 2020, right? So who knows? But I wanted to try something else, and obviously I liked the other thing better, So, but yeah, that was the route I definitely wanted to go into at first.
So you went in early 2001?
Yeah. So I joined, shipped off the boot camp May 2001. Was it May? Yeah, May.
And where was your duty station on 9/11?
So I just finished boot camp, and I was in my A school, Pensacola, Florida, whenever 9/11 happened. And I remember that day, that one's like ingrained in my memory, because we were all in class at that time. And then I remember they locked down the base, and then they had like a safety stand down. They called us all in to watch what happened. And then they had and I remember I distinctly remember when we were in the barracks, all the phones were ringing off the hooks. It was obviously all the parents calling all of us and like, are you guys going to war? What's going to happen? Trying to figure out. And then I do remember them telling us like, you guys, no matter what, you guys have to finish your A school, your training first, so, but they was like, that will be our next mission where we got to go over to whatever. That was before anything was kind of announced. But we knew in our head, like, we somehow, some way got to get revenge, payback. And so it like definitely flipped a switch in my head. Okay, I'm going for this and that. But I was like, no matter what, it's going to be for them efforts to get, to pay back, what they did to us, And
Right.
so that's what, it is. This is real now, so that's what made the shift whenever I was in. Yeah.
When you made your transition in from civilian to enlisted, was that transition easy for you? Did you find it difficult for the rules and the regulations and the haircut?
You know what? Not really. This is very funny, right? So I'm in there, okay, are they yelling at me? I was like, okay, cool. This is to play the game. So I'm learning to play the game, right? And I wasn't like, of course it was like a culture shock because I'm used to just like I played football. Coaches yelled at me. I always told them like this. I was like, man, I had a black mama. I can understand. I can deal with somebody yelling at me. So that was my kind of mentality, right? And so when this happened, I was like, it really didn't bug me. I wasn't like afraid. It wasn't like a culture shock, so to speak. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna play the game and get through it. And of course I was watching other grown men just like, cry, and they couldn't deal with it. And then, I when I was in boot camp and I seen people just like kind of fail or get kicked out, and I was like, in my head, like, it's not that hard. Right, just shut up, listen to the rules, and keep your mouth shut, and just whatever. So for me, that was kind of easy. And then I remember, like, towards the end of it, my drill instructors, they had like their list of their top 20 recruits, and I was like on all their lists because I didn't complain. I went in there, did my, whatever I had to do, and yeah, and just kind of stayed underneath the radar. I didn't make no trouble, so that wasn't hard for me at all. But that's when I discovered truly, oh, you're flat-footed. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I was, when I was running goofy when I was a kid. And then, but I do remember when I was in boot camp, like my legs and feet were swelling up, really bad shin splints, and I didn't know where that was coming from. They were like, okay, you're flat-footed, so that thing's, they had to make some modifications. I had to get insoles when I ran, but then after that, that was the only like problem that I kind of dealt with. But to this day, I still deal with feet issues and all that stuff like that. But I've always overcame, put it that way,
And what was your rate in the Navy?
I was an aviation electrician.
And did you actually get to pick that, or was it kind of assigned to you?
So I actually picked that. So they gave me a whole list of, because like how I qualified on the ASVAB. They're like, okay, this is what you kind of qualified for, and I was like, well, I like that job. I work on aircrafts. That sounds cool. Cool, right? To get the aircraft carrier, that sounds cool. And so, that's why I chose that, because it was like, all right, that's kind of in the field where I wanted to go, so.
Right after you got out of A school, did you immediately go to a carrier?
No, so I was stationed in San Diego. So yeah, not too far from, down, went to San Diego, NAS North Island. And I worked on S3 Vikings at the time. And
deployment-wise, how soon did you get deployed after getting out of A school?
So we just did like COP depth. So I think the command that I went to was a training command at first, right? So I remember officers would go there, we would train them, and I remember at the time I was a plane captain, right? I'm doing like launch and recovery. I remember giving the hand signals and stuff like that. And I remember all the officers kind of loved me because I'm very animated. So when I was doing it, I was kind of dancing and stuff while I was there. And they're like, oh, we like him, to launch and recover the aircraft, because I made it entertaining at the time. So I really enjoy, like, you could say like the first half of like, my tour there. Because I didn't really, at first I didn't like see nothing. But yeah, I went on like COP depths. We'd go out for a couple weeks at a time. We stayed close to San Diego. I think the first we went was like Hawaii. And then that's when I start getting my first like test or like seeing things, so to speak, right? And the operations on the flight deck they're pretty gnarly, and so I think I've seen like multiple aircraft kind of like crash on the flight deck. I've seen people get blown off the deck, people get sucked in like intakes, and I myself almost got sucked in the intake. I had a buddy who saved my life because I was like brand new, and I was like, first time up there, I was like a deer in the headlights, and I walked right into an intake, and I was literally getting sucked in. He like grabbed me at the last second, and I was like, so that was like a culture shock, or just like, whoa, like I could have died right there. I could, so that was like definitely like a crazy experience to me. You know, the best way I can describe it was like I'm playing football with airplanes. That's the best way I described it, because you're ducking and dodging and you're rolling out on the floor and, you know, and doing it, and everything's like rush. So that's where I started, okay, now it's getting kind of real, you know. And then even whenever I did get deployed after that, we were kind of doing the same thing on aircraft, but now it was like during the time of war, you know. So now we're loading the plane, you know, the AOs are loading the airplanes up with ordnance. They go on missions, they come back. Okay, cool. So we knew, you know, what they were doing. We knew what our job was. You know, whenever they had missions, you know, maybe an Aviation electrician had to fix that airplane, get it up for operations. They go on missions, this and that. So we knew we had an integral part to play, of course, because without us, you know, that plane wouldn't be up and can't do their missions that they got to do. I'd imagine
in a combat situation, the op tempo's just got to ramp up 100%.
Oh yeah, most def. You know, and so, and I actually I love that. You know, and so credit to the boots on the ground. You know, and so I know I don't have one of those crazy stories. You know, and then just, you know, amazing to them. You know, and so we all had, you know, obviously had our job that we had to do in the service. You know, but I can imagine it was something like that. You know, but you know, on the other end of the spectrum. And so, like, I did love that, because, you know, no matter, like what I mentioned before, that was our mission to play during that, you know. And then, of course, on the flight deck, I do remember seeing, like, lots of, you know, tragedy. It was, like, a little different because, you know, if you're, like, in a combat zone, you know, you might, you know, you're going to see death. You're going to see that, you know. But it was strange for me whenever we seen our own people kind of go down on the flight deck. You know, I do remember the story of, or this girl. I mean, this story is always in my head. You know, I mean, I just see her like all the time, like in the galley, right? And I don't know, wonder why. I don't know if it was like I don't want to say it was an attraction, but she was interesting to me. I don't know why, you know. So I used to see her, you know, and then one day I remember we both worked on the flight deck, and she used to like kind of work by the catapults, and I was on the other side, you know, because we had to duck down when they're launching the aircraft. And then I remember this one day, I guess she stood up or missed the timing, and they launched and then just like took her head off. And I was like, all right, that's something you don't see every day, you know? And so I was like, all right. And so obviously it was medical emergency on the deck, and, you know, I don't think she made it, you know, but I was like, okay, you know, like, all right, now this is real. Even though we're not in combat, we're still seeing people like go down, you know? And so you would get medical emergency calls all the time on the flight deck. You know, I remember this one kid, I guess he was trying to remove the chocks from the airplane when the airplane was going, and his foot got caught. He ended up getting both his legs ran over by the airplane. And you just see like, okay, so you start seeing those things. You're just like, all right, you know, you just kind of like brush it off and you let the emergency team do their thing. And then he's like, all right, resume operations. So you would see like that kind of stuff all the time. So it was very dangerous up there. See people fly off the flight deck. Like I mentioned, I almost got stuck in the intake. I seen planes come back and then they missed the landing. I seen them hit the back of the flight deck. The plane explodes. You see debris all over the place. Then, hey, stop operations, you know, FOD walk. Let's go back to mission time. So those, you just have to learn to see it and just keep going, you know. And so even though like I wasn't in combat, we still seen our fair share of just gnarly stuff on the deck, you know. And so then you just kind of put it out your mind and just kind of keep going, you know, no matter, you know, we still got a job we got to do.
And we're going to get into this, but looking back at that time, did you see that it was already starting to impact you mentally? Or were you ignoring it at that time?
I think I was ignoring it at the time, you know, didn't really let it get to me, you know. I remember being on a ship, we're deployed for so long, we're all end up in like, we're zombies, right? So, you know, but I remember even then in the Navy, my outlet was still always weight training. You know, after we get off duty, all right, go eat, hit a meal, go right to the weight room. Wake up, you know, back to operations. So it was like always that. So we didn't really have time to like think and process things. You know, we would work long 18-hour days or 16-hour, whatever it was, and then we back to duty. And, you know, so it was like Groundhog Day every day. So I don't think we really had time to like process all that until after, you know, we came back home or whatever it may be, you know.
Coming to the end of your first enlistment, were you already decided I'm one and done? Or was there a point where you thought maybe I'll extend, maybe start thinking about a career?
You know, I did think about it. and even like I said, even after other things I experienced, because I remember a story too. We were over there. It was back in 2004 or 5. I can't remember the year, but it was when it was like a big old, it was an underwater earthquake that happened over in Indonesia and Sumatra. It was a 10-point earthquake. Tsunami came, killed like millions of people over in Indonesia. I don't know if you remember that, but we had to go over there for humanitarian relief. And then this is still kind of one of the things that kind of messed me up a little bit too to this day. Again, you know, you're used to seeing like, you know, some people just like, all right, if you're in time of combat, you're whatever, you're thinking you're going to see that. But we're going over there for humanitarian relief. And I remember us coming in after the tsunami hit. And then as we're coming in like to that area, we just see bodies just floating past the ship. And then you're looking down and it's like, all right, that's something you don't see every day. You know, and I do remember like in my head, I still got visions of like little kids just floating in the water, right? Just past the ship, you know, and then it's like, you know, so some of those memories, those like stick with me because, you know, hey, those people were innocent. You know, it wasn't right. Like in a war zone. They just got hit with a tsunami. And so those memories kind of stick with me, you know, but then again, whenever I see that, you just kind of put it out of your mind and hey, now we're landing on shore. Now we're going to help the people, bring them back, you know, help them, those who need medical aid, bring them back to the ship. We send teams out, you know, we help build like their whole water system again, bring them food, all that stuff like that. So we were doing a mission, our humanitarian relief. We were over there after we got redirected for like 45 days doing that mission. So that was a pretty cool mission that I really enjoyed and glad I was a part of. You know, you don't see that side sometimes of the military. You know, so that was pretty cool. But as far as the answer to your question, did I want to stay in? Maybe I think I did. So I tried to change rates, right? I was going to go over to, now let me go to be an IT, right? And at the time when I put in for it, it got denied or something like that. And so it did like put like a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, why? You know, I've been in for 4 years now. I do want to stay, but now you guys won't let me cross rates. And then, so at that time, I think I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get out. You know, so I'll ultimately end up getting out. What year? So I got out of active duty 2005. Then I stayed on board like as a reserve until 2000. I did 8 years, so 2009 as a reserve, yeah.
With them basically diverting you, so you would have liked to have stayed in if they'd have given you the opportunity to move to IT. You decided you're not going to give it to me, so I'm going to get out. Did you have any plan for yourself after that, or were you just going to kind of play it by ear?
You know what? I think I remember it was coming right to the end of my enlistment, and I was like on watch. And I think when I went inside the command station, somebody was watching a movie or something like that. And I think it was like Ladder 49, right? And I remember like watching this movie and I was like, no, that's cool, right? And so I was like, that's what I want to do. So that's what really like, whenever I got out, that's when I decided I'm going to go ahead and pursue fire and EMS. You know, again, like really getting into stuff, saving lives, you know, and so that's what really put the idea, and that's what I ended up when I got out. That's what I went to school for, fire and EMS.
Anybody in your family in the fire industry?
No, I was the first one.
So the process to get hired as a firefighter, you went to Rio Hondo to get your certification?
Yeah, so that was 2-3 year process, you know, did all my fire classes, got my EMT, and I actually did, like I remember I mentioned I was pretty smart. So EMT school wasn't that hard for me, right? I think I finished with like a 96, 98 percentile, you know, in EMT school, and I did really well in the fire academy. And so, yeah, so that wasn't really that hard for me, you know, to do that. But I knew like, hey, I love this at the time of my life, and I really wanted to like, you know, to help people and save lives, you know. And so, and I think that was a great transition from you know, military to fire, you know.
For those on the law enforcement side, there is the option to put yourself through an academy and hope to get picked up by a law enforcement agency at graduation. Putting yourself through the fire school and the EMT training before you're ever hired, is that normal, or can you go and just get hired and then they'll send you to the schools?
So I remember at the time it was very hard to get picked up. And so they, you know, it's like it was added plus they already have your EMT, already have your fire cert, your fire 1, fire 2, you know, all that stuff like that, the academy. So now when you do apply, you already have like you're a step above, just like if LA City or LA county was hiring, and nobody. It was Joe Blow off the street. Hey, I already got my degree in this, got the cert in this, so it was like an extra added bonus. So you would kind of get like first pick over a regular guy, so to speak.
So by what year were you actually active as a firefighter?
So I graduated the fire academy in it may have been 2009, 10. I can't quite remember, but I'm not gonna lie, that was extremely hard. It was harder than Navy boot camp. I'll tell you that. It was definitely hard.
Combination physical and academics, or one or the other?
So around this time, right, I did kind of like my first stint or trial run to kind of be a bodybuilder. And so I was in school, and I was working as a personal trainer then part-time at LA Fitness. And so then I wanted to be a bodybuilder, right? That was my first stint. So I got like really big, right? So I think when I went into service, I was like I remember I was 161. I was a string bean at 6'1", right? When I got out the service, right, I was 230. So I put on good weight, just like lifting weights while I was on the ship. I said, again, that was my outlet. And then I cut down again. I got really shredded. And I wanted to see like if I put on quality muscle and I had 4 years of active duty. And so, okay, I looked pretty good. Got down to 6.5% body fat. Now I want to blow up. And so I blew all the way up to like maybe 260 something. All right. And then
it's a lot of mass to push around.
Oh yeah. And at the time, I think my first coach, I think he was a sergeant for LAPD. He was like my first like bodybuilding coach. And then, so he was helping me with the process and the food and all that. And then at the time I was still going to all my fire classes. And then once I was done, I was going to put in for the next academy, right? I was like, all right, let me bodybuild and I'll do the next academy. Then I got a call shortly after. They was like, oh, a spot opened up. Do you want to come to this academy that's coming? I was like, man, I only got like 3-4 weeks. I was like, okay. So I accepted it, not knowing, because all right, I'm lifting all these weights and getting big. And when I went to the academy, I didn't do no running, no PT at all. And so that was, I think that's why it was so challenging, because I'm trying to run 7 miles a day, and being with all the gear in the dead, California summer. And I was like, okay, I didn't train for this. Right. And, I got through it, but it was definitely tough. And I remember the first day, cause it was very similar to like Navy boot camp, right? Everybody's on the yellow prints. They're yelling at us. They got the Smokey Bear hats. I'm like, okay, I remember this game. I'm watching a grown man cry again. Like, okay, I got this part. And I remember one little dude comes up to me. He was like, you think the fire service is all about muscles? And I was like, no, sir. You think this is funny? I was like, no, sir. I'm like, all right. So he had me drop down, do all these push-ups, and I was like, okay, all right. So I knew how to play the game, right? But when it came to running, I was like, okay, you guys kind of got me. Put it this way, I survived, but my legs were dang near broken by the time I finished the academy. I was not going to give up. I was resilient. I remember like every night, I'm like literally icing my legs, putting old school Tiger Balm on all my whole body. I think by the time I finished the fire academy, I was like 210 or 209. I remember I went in at 260.
Wow.
Right. So I lost.
Over how long of a period?
4 months.
Wow.
Yeah. 16 weeks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They really put a hurting on me, but I was like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm determined. And I made it through, and then shortly after that, they had so the chief of that fire academy, he got a government contract, right? I think at the time it was Caterpillar in Illinois, right? They were starting a new fire department over there. They were going to hire all these people from California, So I was like, okay. And then he told all us recruits about it, right when we were graduating. If you guys want, you guys can start working right away as a firefighter EMT, but you got to relocate out of state. And I was like, cool, I'm with it. I'll do it, And so right out of Fire Academy, that was my first fire job. I relocated to Illinois, Peoria, and that was the first time I experienced negative 33 degree wind chill factor temperature, being a boy from California, but I really enjoyed it, even though the temperature wasn't the greatest.
Wasn't boot camp for the Navy also in Chicago?
Yeah, it was in Great Lakes. Yeah, but I went during the summer. I went from May to, so I didn't really catch that cold. Then when I went back to Illinois, This time it was January.
Like, I didn't see this picture before.
Yeah, I didn't see this picture before, so that was definitely, that was a different experience.
How long did you last there?
So, let me see, maybe a couple months, right? The reason being is because, let's go back to after I got out of the military, right? I fell into alcoholism, right? And then prior to I think I told you, prior to me deploying, going to the military, I didn't drink, right? When I got back, when I came back home after, deployment and doing 4 years active duty, that's one thing I fell heavy in, and even though I was going to school, getting my certs, even though I was a personal trainer, I was pretty much an alcoholic. I do remember going to class, I have like a little water bottle with me. People, what's that? Okay, man, no. And they think it's water, think it's water or Gatorade. I had liquor in there. I had, my drink of choice was like Hennessy and Coke. So I remember going all through college and drinking Hennessy and Coke, right? And so not knowing at that time, the reason why I was drinking, because I didn't know I was diagnosed, I had PTSD for many years. So I felt heavy into drinking, right, over the years, but I was still functional, right? And then I didn't think I had a problem.
So you didn't, in your mind, you were not drinking to hide or mask anything?
Yeah, in my mind, I wasn't. Just like, all right, it was just second nature. All right, drink, and so I think that was just a way I was just covering up things, right? And then that went on for like a series of like years, and I do remember, again, even though I was doing all this good positive stuff, firefighter, EMT, going to fire academy, the other end, all I was doing was drinking, partying. It'll be times when my grandma would find me in the car in the parking lot, just like all up on the curve. And she was like, she'll come outside. She was like, I'm not knowing how I even got there, so I battled with that for many, many years, and didn't even know the reason why,
And going to the fire academy, getting into bodybuilding, those weren't big enough stimulus to get you to stop. I guess where I'm going with this is the drinking didn't prevent your performance as both a bodybuilder and in the fire academy?
So obviously the fire academy, I stopped, right? Because I had no time.
Okay.
And then that first stint where I tried to be a bodybuilder, I think I still was drinking, because then again, I didn't take it as serious.
Got it.
Right. And I don't think my first coach told me, all right, you got to quit. So I was like, okay. So I just kind of kept drinking like on the weekends. Right. And then, but during the training, I still did my training. Right. So I think it just never kind of came up, but yeah, in the fire academy, I did stop. And then once I finished the fire academy and got hired on with Illinois, the drinking picked back up. Right. And then after that, so the reason why I left Illinois, so whenever I was in that drinking phase, I did get a DUI back in 2006. And by West Covina PD, I got pulled over, and I had spent the night in the drunk tank, and so that was my first little run with the law. And then after that, I think I got picked up another time, but it wasn't drinking. It was I think I missed my court date, failure to appear. So I did get pulled over. Like a headlight was out. They ran my name. Failure to appear. They took me to jail again, and I think that was maybe a couple months later after DUI. And then so fast forward to Illinois. So they knew I had a DUI on my record, and I disclosed that. I didn't hide it. So I think at the time they were changing their policy. They were something they were doing. Maybe they got audited. I have no idea. But then they came back around and was like, oh, after this particular audit, the insurance is not going to cover you as a driver for the ambulance or for the fire truck, whatever, something like that. And I was like, well, whenever you guys hired me, you hired me as a firefighter EMT. You didn't hire me as a driver or whatever. So they was like, well, now they want everybody to be driver certified. And so I ended up getting let go from there. Then I came back home to California. And now, again, remember I told you I knew the chief. That was the fire academy. Well, we had a sister company in El Segundo. And I was working for Boeing. Yeah, I was working for Boeing. And they had a facility where they made the B-2 bomber parts and all that. So I actually ended up getting picked up when I came back home. He was the chief there. And so I just had to go through the whole interview process, and I got picked up over there. So So I ended up having another job. And then again, the drinking started back again, right? Because, I was going through my rookie phase. And then after you pass probation, then all the other, the fire captains, everybody, and let's come out and drink, this party. Right. So fell back into the drinking, even though saving lives by day, drinking at night, then that got to a really bad point, because then I started getting in, when I go out, fights. Start getting in fights. I had different run-ins, but, with law enforcement. But, I pulled the firefighter card, at the time, and then they kind of let me go. But then that's where I started noticing I was having a problem, because family members start going away from me, right? Started losing friends, family didn't want to go out, because every time, hey, DaJuan's going to go out, he's going to drink, party, get in a fight, something. So again, I never knew where that came from. Because even my mom told me, she was like, I don't know why you fell into drinking and party, and getting in fights. She was like, before you went to service, you were never like that. She was like, I raised a good kid. Again, not knowing I was dealing with PTSD. Because I was thinking in my head, I wasn't in combat. Yeah, I seen stuff, but I'm fine. And not knowing, and then it came up later in life, when I did, had some issues, fast forward to I met my wife. Right. Then I start having these weird outbursts, right? Really rage, depression, up and down. Then, I was in the house throwing things. Again, didn't know where it came from, and then at the time.
Did that happen if you were drunk or sober? It didn't matter? Yeah.
Now it was just happening all the time, and drunk or sober, and, fall into depression. And I was like, okay, where is this coming from? Right. Then I hit a really bad spout. I think I was literally contemplating suicide at that point. Again, I didn't know the reason why. I know I did have these, I was had OCD type of things I was doing. And if things weren't done in that order, I would just lose it. Right. And that's when the rage would kind of start. And then, again, I would, I wouldn't take it out on my wife, physically, nothing like that, but it would just be very verbal. And I'm throwing things, punching walls, again, not knowing why this is happening. Right. And then ultimately I fell into a really dark place, and I met a guy, and then he was like, have you ever thought about, you may have PTSD? And I was like, I didn't even, okay. And I'm like, I didn't see combat. He was like, no, he's like, you don't have to see combat in order to get PTSD. I was okay, all right, I'll go to the vet center. And then when I went to the vet center, that's when I met Raul Sarabia.
Answer for that. Is there something else I can
And that's when I met Raul Sarabia. And then we went through our little treatments trying to find out what was going on.
What year was this?
This was, so it was kind of fast forwarded. This was probably 2017, 2018.
Prior to that, at your worst, how much were you drinking each day?
So I saved the drinking till the weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Pretty much a fifth of Hennessy every night. Those nights where I partied and went out. So that was so I would drink a fifth before I went out. Then while I'm in the club or the bar, drank more. Then I started mixing it with vodka. Right. Then I would start blacking out. And that's whenever my spouts would happen, where I would get in fights and wake up and why my knuckles bloody, or, why I got a bruise here, why I got a bloody nose here,
Never a point between when you say you went in 2017, or the person who suggested, hey, maybe you should get checked out for PTSD. Prior to that, never in your own mind, man, I am just drinking too much. I need to try to find a way to stop.
I was that person. I was like, I was fine. So that's what I was lying to myself. Definitely lying to myself. And even though I did have family members that was saying, you have a problem, I'm like, no, I'm good. So I was just in complete denial.
What ended up forcing you out of the fire service? Because I know you did a stint working for the post office.
Yeah.
So what was the final straw pushing you out of the fire service?
So after that, so while on the job, as a firefighter EMT, again, so I worked in El Segundo, and I worked part-time in Compton, as an ambulance operator. So I was seeing different. I was seeing GSWs in Compton, running the traffic collisions, pulling people out, kids out of really bad accidents, seeing a lot of death in that, right? And so I'm getting all that, right? And again, it's part of the job. We just soak it up, and keep on pushing. Some things stuck with me, but I was like, you got to get it out your mind. I remember I was working on one gentleman, he passed away, but I was really working him up. He reminded me of my dad. So I'm working him up, and I was really trying hard to save his life. And then I think I was doing since I was first on scene, then we transported him in an ambulance, and then from the ambulance, and we got to hospital. I'm still working up. I think maybe that time it could have been like maybe 45 minutes to even up to an hour where I'm doing CPR on this guy through the whole process. Cause I said, we were first on scene, ambulance, then ultimately he didn't make it. And that was stuck with me for a while because the guy reminded me of my dad, but then again, I was like, hey, that's part of the job. You can't save everybody. Then, total, like when I was in EMS, I think I total had like 4 or 5 saves for people I did save. Then again, the thing that always stuck with me too was like anything with like kids, pulling them out of car accidents and stuff of that nature. All right, this person didn't make it, all right, they're gone, time of death. Okay, keep on going. So a lot of things you have to quickly put them out of your mind because you got to do triage and so on and so forth. So I think that's when the drinking kind of got really heavier. Again, not knowing I'm using that to mask things that I've seen, but ultimately I ended up leaving the fire and EMS service because my old department in El Segundo, they end up having cutbacks, right? So they end up letting go half of us there. Then I went up to the ambulance company full time, and I ended up becoming a supervisor there. And I was doing that, full time until me and the owner at the time, the ambulance company, we had some disagreements and kind of like fell out, and he was kind of like working us like to death. I was like, man, I've been working for 5 days, and then I got to go home, So it was kind of a disagreement. And I think I did get in an accident with the ambulance one day, right? I think I made I didn't have my lights and sirens on, but I made a turn and I didn't wait. And then I did kind of hit a truck. And so that's what kind of spurred it. Then after that, for some reason, he didn't want to use his insurance or something like that. He wanted me to pay for the damages. I was like, that's kind of not right. I mean, I get it. It happened. It's an accident. We were, heading to a call, but that's why you have insurance. But why are you making me pay and trying to dock my salary for it? And I was like, so that's where we had a disagreement, and that's ultimately whenever, I'm not paying for that, and he's like, well, I'm gonna hold your money. So I ended up having to go to like a labor board. And then ultimately I ended up winning and got my money because he can't do that, but that's why I ended up leaving, the fire and EMS service. And then that's how I ended up getting on with the post office, and so this would actually kind of stop my drinking. So around this time, I was like, again, saving lives by day, drinking at night. At the time I was single, I'm partying, stuff like that, meeting different girls. And then, I'm a very big faith guy, now. And I had a vision, right? Or not a vision, but I was raised in the church, right? And I knew this path that I was going on because I was losing like friends and family. Nobody wanted to be around me. And it was kind of like a dark place, Then I remember like I had this, it was coming off my birthday weekend. And then I started kind of feeling funny. I think maybe I thought I was feeling sick at first, right? And then after that, remember that same chief at the time, he was like, Freeman, are you okay? And I was like, man, I don't feel good. So I go in his office, like, well, come talk to me. What's going on? And so I'm sitting there in his office and not knowing what's wrong with me. And I started getting this weird emotions or something. And then I just kind of, a vision happened, right? It basically was like, if you keep going down this path in your life, this is where your life's going to end up. And I was like literally on my deathbed. And there was nobody around me, no wife, no kids, no nothing. I was dying from I don't know what. And then he was like, if you turn your life around and you come back to me, it'll be best life ever. Right. And all right. And I seen that vision, I think, God talked to me. And then after that, then it was just like, it just all snapped and clicked. And then I was in my chief's office. I was crying uncontrollably. Just basically, and I think he had a box of like Kleenex on his desk. I'm wiping my face down. Then after that, and then I was like, I know what I got to do. He was like, okay. And then I just like left. And then after that, the drinking for me just stopped. I had no urge to drink no more, right? Instead of me going out partying 3 times a week, I was in church 3 times a week, right? So that really, God talked to me at that moment, and it really did change my life. And so, again, I wasn't using the drinking to mask no more, right? But ultimately, that's whenever the other stuff started coming in the back end, right? Now fast forward to when I'm with my wife, now I'm having the mood swings, I'm having the depression, because I guess the drinking was masking all that, right? And now that drinking no longer was my vice or my medicine, whatever it was. So now all those feelings kind of came out, right? And so that's whenever I started going to the vet center, fast forward, because I didn't know where that stuff was coming from. So the drinking was just a Band-Aid.
When you got close or was considering suicide, was that after you stopped drinking?
Yeah, it was after I stopped drinking.
Did you actually get close to it? Or how close did you get to it?
It was times where I wanted to just like drive off the freeway. And I think prior to that, it was times where I did try to slit my wrist a few times. Times where I even thought about like, back to in the drinking days, it was times where I did like, all right, let me do suicide by cop. So those little random thoughts would like randomly pop up out of nowhere, but I always like kind of fought them off, right? But when I hit that really bad bout of like depression and all that stuff like that, it was very hard to fight off. They were happening like literally all the time, and I could just be chilling with my wife and my son at the time, and then they would start coming up. And I was like, why? I'm having like, I'm happy with my wife, and I got my first kid and I'm happy, but they would just slowly slip up in there.
Who was the person who actually recommended you go to the vet center and talk to somebody?
So this is right after the post office. Like I was there briefly, and I just got married with my wife, and my first kid was on the way. And then I actually ended up getting injured at the post office, like something with my leg or something like that. And then they were gonna put me out for like 8 months. And then I was like, well, I'm next in line to be, a regular. I was gonna get, be at the post office full time. And they were like, well, we can't pay because you're still technically not a regular employee. You're not a full-time employee. So at the time I was like, you know what? I think this is like a sign for me to step away. And so that's when I stepped away from the post office, and I came to a point like, what do I want to do with my life? Right. And that's whenever it hit me, I think God talked to me, it was like fitness. Fitness was always your calling. This is always this now. I was like, I'm gonna pursue fitness, right? And then that's when I started working and managing. I think I did my first bodybuilding show at that time. Ended up winning a local show. Ended up becoming as an amateur, like top in the nation. I was like, okay, I'm actually pretty. Because this whole time I was still working out, right? And then I was in a nutrition shop, and this guy was a customer. And then we ended up talking. He was a Army vet, Navy vet. And then he's the one that brought up, because one day we got in like really deep conversation, and he's the one that mentioned the vet center to me. And then that's whenever I ended up going to the vet center. And then that's what I said, Raul Sarabia saved my life, because I had, I didn't know I had all this stuff that I was dealing with and going through, even from like childhood stuff to like, things I've seen in the service. I said, again, I didn't think I had a problem or I had PTSD because I wasn't officially in combat. Right. And so, but that's just a testament to say, I'll tell people this, like I meet other veterans, there's like, they never go to the vet center and they have these problem issues. They're like, well, I didn't want to go because I wasn't in combat. I'm like, you don't have to be in combat. You can witness something happen to somebody, life or death situation. You can see somebody die, whatever situation you're in, that can trigger or cause PTSD, and it manifests later on in your life and you don't even know it, And so that was a really big eye opener for me. And I'm glad he recommended me to get that, because, to get help. And like I said, and ever since then, I've gotten the help that I needed,
From the time you started going to the vet center, were you immediately open to the help that they were offering, or did you kind of resist it a little bit in the beginning?
I think I was very open, because I remember after that first session, and I let all that stuff that I was bottled up inside of me out. I felt like exhausted, right? I do remember that. I just felt so exhausted, and I kind of like a sigh of relief, and then I was scared to go back because I didn't like having all those feelings come up, but I knew I had to go back, and so I was like, "Wow, what's the next session?" Right, and so I was like actually looking forward to our session because I really wanted to like get that help, because some veterans, that I've talked, they don't want to get that help, and I did want that help because I had a family and I wanted to be there for them, and I didn't want these thoughts to continue, right? Again, I've always thought like, again, all right, there's times where I wanted to take my life, and I was like, what about my wife? What about my son? Right? What about them? So that was always like my thought in my head. So I had to fight or overcome this for them. So I really wanted the help that the vet center was given, and so that's why I think I excelled pretty much in the vet center, and still an amazing tool because I want help, and then I was really receptive to it, and I wanted to be better and wanted to battle all this stuff that I was dealing with.
There's two angles I want to go at. One, just real quick, during your worst, you mentioned today you actually work out with your brother and it's brought you guys back together.
Yeah.
What was your relationship with your brother like during that period when you were heavily drinking and all that?
He was one of the ones that didn't want to be around me either, because he was like, you're going to get us in trouble. So, those times where he was out with me at a club or a bar or something, and I got in a fight and he didn't want to fight, and so I would kind of drag people in fights with me because I was doing that. And so that kind of pushed a lot of relationships. And now he was one of the relationships that kind of got pushed away because like, I don't want to go with my brother. He's going to cause some trouble.
Got it. You went to the vet center or started going to the vet center 2017.
Yeah.
It's 2024. Are you still going on a regular basis?
So, yeah. So now like, again, like once you have PTSD and stuff of that nature, like you can be fine, right, for a while. And then, but those things, like, they never leave you because I'm not on no medication for it. The biggest thing for me has been bodybuilding and weight training. That's like my outlet. I have to go every day. Even if I don't do weight training, me doing cardio, I just get that endorphin release. I feel great. And there's days where I don't go, and my wife will be like, what's wrong with you? Go to the gym, right? And then I'll come back and like, hey, I'm a whole new person, whole new husband. So that is like my daily therapy I need to do. And even Ralph Robbie told me, he's like, what you're doing is good. I don't have to, prescribe no medication for you. He's like, just keep doing that. And again, I said, we have a great relationship, and then so I still go because there'll be times where I'm just good. I'm great. And then just like any human being, right? Sometimes business is not good. Sometimes, you have issues with your spouse and things go down. Then it kind of brings back those old feelings again. You start like, why am I feeling suicidal again? Why am I this? Why am I that? So it never really like officially like 100% leaves us. We just battle it like daily. So I still go to the vet center to this day, just like get things off my chest or whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm going through. Hey, I feel this coming back. What do you think? What should I do to get advice? And in me just doing that it could be once a month. Like that helps me, because as men, we bottle a lot of stuff up inside. And then sometimes it just eats at us, especially like me, I'm the sole provider of my family. I'm 100% disabled veteran, but also too, like, my wife is a stay-at-home mom. She, raises the 3 kids. So the whole financial, everything is on me. So if business is going bad and we only got just that income, it's like, I'm going to start stressing out and trying to, hey, I got to get business back, got to get new clientele, whatever. And then, when that happens, like us men, like we kind of bottle it up and then that stress will come out in other weird ways, and then there's been times where the weight room didn't help me. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And then you start getting kind of erratic and I started noticing things coming up. And that's when I'm like, all right, I'll call, Ralph Sarabia and I need to book an appointment with you again because now the weight room is not working no more. I need to get stuff off my chest, or I need you to kind of give me better guidance how to deal with it. So I use the vet center still to this day as an amazing tool to help me whatever situation I'm going through.
You mentioned that you're not taking medication. Was that something that was a conscious decision of yours from day one that you did not want to be on medication? Or did you start a period of medication and then say, you know what, I want to be off of it?
I, from day one, didn't want, because I've talked to other veterans, and then a lot of them, they were on medications and they just had crazy adverse effects. Right. And I was like, I don't want none of them effects. Like, I really don't. You know, one of them, you know, he was saying one guy made him have even more suicidal thoughts. One guy, you know, he lost like all sexual desire. Like, it was just so many different. I was like, I don't want none of that. Like, I will deal with it on my own or find another outlet or another way to deal with it, because I didn't want to have any adverse effects, you know, especially being in a household with my family, with my kids. So that's why in the beginning I elected, like, I didn't want to go medication. I would do any other route but that, you know. And so, but that's kind of like, you know, where I'm at, like today, you know, I still, you know, not no medication. Of course, I do, it's times wherever it does flare up really bad. And then I do CBD. CBD does help me, calm me down, calms down my anxiety, stuff of that nature. And again, I think another reason why too, I stay so busy, right? And because I like that. I'm a little weird. I thrive in that fight or flight. Right. So I constantly on purpose book my schedule, because like it keeps me like doing something. Right. And my mind doesn't get like no weird, crazy thoughts like creep in, you know, and I don't mind.
Give your mind a downtime to allow those thoughts to creep in.
Yes. And then I like that, you know, but that's just my thing. I know everyone is completely different, but I love being like, I love that, you know, just because from the military, from the fire service, that I thrive in that. You know, but I do realize I got to take some time, you know, because I do have a family, and I do enjoy them. I do enjoy my wife and my kids. But then it's like, I need something again. You know, like I'm addicted to that, I guess, you know.
So turning the corner, when did you decide, all right, I want to go down the professional bodybuilding route, and I want to pause that a second. As far as making your profession fitness training, how did that come about, and what training did you have to go to, or certifications did you have to get to be able to train people?
So I got certified like way right out the military, right? Because I remember they asked me, because I remember I was already enrolled in Rio Hondo College, and then one guy was like, "Hey, are you a trainer?" I was like, "No," and he was like, "You know what? I want to have you a trainer as on my staff." So this was like 2005 or 2006. He was like, "You know what? Through LA Fitness, we have this thing. I'll hire you on, but we'll pay for your cert," or something like that, or whatever it was. Then I got certified back then. So that's where I got, you know, my basic initial certification. And then after that, so I already knew about nutrition and fitness, so on and so forth, you know, to train people the basics. And then when I made the transition in the future to come back to training, right, I just obviously re-up on my certs. But a lot of me, again, like say I'm self-taught. But then again, I've always had like a lot of like bodybuilding coaches and mentors that I've learned from throughout the years. I think I had my first official bodybuilding coach, what was it, 2016 or 17, I think. So I learned and mentored under him, right? And I applied that with my current, you know, training knowledge. And then again, like, you know, I'm studying things online, studying techniques, studying forums, you know, like I'm always like, again, like how I mentioned earlier, like I love knowledge. I love, you know, especially like perfecting my craft. So I was always like learning new things, learning techniques and trying this, trying that. And then when I was running Imagine the supplement shops, that helped me out a lot too, because I've learned what natural supplements work great for this, for hormones, for fat loss. So I'm reading all the ingredients, what they do. So I was like, all right, so now to this day, I combine like my past certs, knowledge I learned under my past and current coach, knowledge that I've learned under, you know, studying like the different everything. And so I combine that together. And then even with my fire and EMS, right, whenever I was in school, I had to learn anatomy, physiology, and so I combine all that together, you know, and so that's why like I'm pretty good at what I do, because I know how all that works on the human body and this and that and hormones and natural herbal supplements and so on and so forth. And so that made me over time like a really great bodybuilding coach and even like lifestyle coach. Like one of my main specialties is like I help like, dad bods or whatever, getting the best shape of life in your late 30s, 40s, 50s. I think my oldest client, he's almost 60, looks amazing, because I understand like how the human body works. Once you get a certain age, what your testosterone level drop, estrogen levels go. So I know how to help battle that and combat that in individuals, just through all those, those different genres. I kind of told you where I got all that information and knowledge from.
So you've got almost 20 years under your belt, give or take, training people.
Yes.
But for somebody who might be interested in saying, I really enjoy fitness, I want to go get my cert today, but they have no training experience under their belt, what would be your advice for kicking off a fitness training career?
I would say, look online. We could look at different online courses. They got NASM. I think they got ISSA. They got so many different certifications you can kind of register and do online. You can either go, they may have like a training course at a site, or you can even do it all, online. Everything now is online based. So that's where I would say, to start out at, right? And then 2, trying to build up so once you have the cert, you got to build up a clientele, right? And so I would, recommend, if you're not if they're not, great salesmen or hustle or whatever, get on that grind, so to speak, start at like a little local gym, right? A commercial gym like LA Fitness, 24 hours, whatever, and start there and work and learn how to learn that side, because you got to have, essentially sales experience, because you're selling, like my training packages, they're not cheap, right? So you got to, why should somebody pay you that much for personal training, right? So you have to learn that aspect of it as well, not just because I'm a coach, I'm certified trainer. They're like, why I got to pay you that much? So you have to learn to kind of sell yourself, right, as well too, Are you saying get a job with that gym as a trainer to basically build your expertise as a trainer before you go out on your own? Yes. And so, so that would be the best, the fastest route, I would say. Start at one of those gyms first. And then after that, they can teach you, those basics, and you can start learning how to build up a clientele from there, right? They'll schedule you people, whatever. Then after you're there for, give it, 6 months, a year, however long they want to be there, then those client retention are the clients that want to stay with you. Then hey, now I'm going to go work at a private gym, private facility. And what those people are paying those gyms, they got to pay the membership and they got to pay the training. But the trainer only gets I don't know, maybe 15 an hour, whatever it may be, right? And I was like, okay, so if they're used to paying that amount, tell that, that client, hey, I'm going to give you a deal based off what you're training. I'm only going to charge you this much hour. You pay me directly, and then you go to a private gym. So that would be the best way I would recommend for somebody to start building up their clientele, doing it on their own, instead of just all right, got the certification. Now you're paying rent at multiple gyms. I pay, rent at multiple gyms. So, and then now you got to pay that, but you don't have no clientele. So what are you going to do? Right. So at least you go that route first. You can get clientele first and branch out on your own. And then now you have a name or reputation. You kind of move into that private gym with some people. For the people that don't have, and there's no way to say it or other way to say it, they don't have their own natural motivation. You, for example, you enjoy being in the gym. You're going to do what it takes to be there every day. What are some of the things that have worked for you to help your clients kind of, because I know they always use that, there's a motivation will go away. It's dedication that's going to keep you. How do you get into their head and keep that dedication going? You know what? Every individual is completely different, in all honesty. Why I do so good with my clientele, because I lead from the front. They in a sense get motivated because, hey, my coach is competing, my coach is in prep, my coach is doing these shows, he's winning, and then people want to follow a winner. People want to follow a leader, right? And I credit the military to that, building that discipline in me, that work ethic and all that stuff, and then moving even to the fire service and so on and so forth. So I love leading from the front. And so I tell my clients, hey, if I'm doing this and I'm training you and I have 50 other clients as well, and I have a family and I'm at the gym before you doing cardio, all that, you can do it too. So, but I find what works best for each clientele or client to motivate them Then after that, but then I show them, hey, I'm a lead from the front. So I'm not just sitting back telling you to do X, Y, Z. I'm doing it too. And so a lot of them, like, they're inspired by me in that particular instance. And a lot of them too is like, brother, coach, you don't look 42, right? I thought you were in your late 20s, so that kind of gives them like, hey, a lot of them are young, a lot of them are older, whatever it may be. But that in a sense inspires a lot of them because I'm leading from the front, and if that doesn't motivate them, I find out again, or teach them about discipline, right? I'll find like a lot of cliche sayings and I'll send it to them, and I do hold like my clientele accountable. So not only do they have to train with me on certain days, I make them all check in on Saturdays. You're going to send me your weight on the scale. You're going to fill out the questionnaire, on things you did outside the gym. Because I want them to be successful. They're paying me a good amount of money. I want them to succeed. And I don't like to lose, right? On stage. And I don't like to lose. Like if somebody hires me, I want the job to get done. So I go above and beyond for my clientele because I want them to be successful. And whatever avenues that they're struggling in, I'm going to help any way possible. Hey, all right, okay, what if I got to switch this or do that? Because I want them to succeed. And so I'm one of them coaches that's going to be on their butt. But at the end of the day, if it takes 6 months to get to a goal, a year, 2 years, 3, whatever it may be, they know like, hey, my coach right there, he was the reason why that I succeeded. Because if without him, without him, I would have gave up a long time ago. So I'm one of them coaches. I'm not just like, all right, okay, I'll see you in the weekend, do what you want to do. And, because they're going to eventually fade away because I'm paying this guy all this money and then I'm not seeing results. So I make sure like I really hold them accountable.
And it sounds obvious to say this and almost redundant to say it, but if your clients fail, ultimately that reflects back on you from a business standpoint where they're not going to refer people to you, or people aren't going to look at them and go, who's training you kind of deal.
Yes. And that's a huge part as well. And so that's another reason why I want them to succeed, because again, people see trainers online all the time. People see transformations. People may sign up for that, but people always sign up based off of word of mouth. Oh, I signed up because you changed my husband, you changed my brother, you changed my whoever, right? Those are people who like, they refer 3 or 4, whatever people to you because they actually seen that person go from that to this. And they're like, okay, that person's credible. That person's real. He's tangible. I've seen what he does in real life and in person over a few months. So that referral base is the best compared to just promoting online all day long. So yeah. So if I don't, if my clients don't succeed, they don't hit their goal, then I look bad, then I don't get no referrals. But, also what I do as well, obviously I put little incentives in there. Hey, if you do this, I'll give you this, right? And also too, hey, if you bring me one person, I got referral bonuses I give them too. So that gives them another incentive to like, hey, okay, I'm gonna get this bonus from my coach. And if I bring another person, I'm gonna get this referral bonus, whatever it may be. So that helps out a lot as well.
Now, for you as a professional bodybuilder,
yes,
when did you make the decision to go, okay, I'm actually going to take the next step?
Yeah.
Because I'm already living in the gym 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I need to now live here for 36 hours a day because I want to be a professional. When did that come about?
You know what? So whenever I did my first show, it was 2015. Just got married. My first son was on the way. And I was looking back over my life and I was like, I've always been working out no matter what I did in my life. And then I was like, and I was going to do that bodybuilding that one time, I never did. So I looked back and I was like, let me just do it as a bucket list thing. Let me just say I did it. I watched one of my buddies do a competition. He won the whole show. And I was like, man, I've been training longer than that guy. I look better than that guy. That was in my head, right? So I shot him a DM on Instagram. I was like, hey, man, congratulations on your show. Hey, show me kind of how you did it. Because regular nutrition is different from like bodybuilding prep, completely different, right? So I was like, kind of teach me the bodybuilding prep side. And then he didn't even charge me that much to kind of prep me for my first show. We did like a quick, fast 6-7 week prep. Got on stage. I got like 4th place. I was like, okay. And I was happy, and that little first 7-8 week prep was hard. But in my head, I was like, I can do better than this. I was like, I've been working out like 20 years. I can get first place. And so then it became that little chase, that little game. And I was like, okay, what if I, because I remember I was newlywed, had my first son away, and I was, I was working out, but it wasn't like, I'm happy, I'm settled, but I just wanted to do it. And I was like, what if I go back in the train like how I was, put my size back on, go back up to like 250, then cut down. And so that's what I did, right? So I did that. Put my size back on, cut down. And at the time, me and my wife, we had our newborn. So I still was like, all right, okay, I gotta wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do my cardio. And I was like, I'm gonna get it done. So no matter what, nothing stopped. I never gave an excuse because I wanted to come back and I wanted to win. So I came back that next show. Then at that time, I was like self-taught. So I used what my knowledge I had and what my buddy taught me for that first show, put it all together, did my own research, and came back, won that whole show. I was like, okay. And then did the next show. Won again. I was like, okay, I think I actually pretty good at this. Then it was like this big national show. It was USA's in Vegas, right? Still kind of self-taught, learning how my body responds, react to certain things. And, then I go to that show. First national show is like maybe 50 guys in my category. I was like, oh, man. All right, so you backstage looking, you're pumping up. I was like, you know what, I'm fine, I got this, right? I remember, mind you, all them guys have like coaches and stuff because they've probably been doing a long time. And my first show out, my first national show, with all them guys in my class, I ended up getting 5th in the nation. I was like, okay, right? I think I'm actually pretty good at this, this being just like my 4th show or whatever it may be. And so then my wife was like, I thought this was like a one-time thing. I was like, I'm actually pretty good, dear. You see me winning. And so then that's what just kept it going. And then the next show I came around, they said, the reason why, you get judge feedback, right? The judge tell you, really great conditioning, you have a small waist, V-taper, this is what you got to improve on. And I looked at the other guys that placed higher than me, they had more size, right? Even though my conditioning was good, I was shredded, and I needed to work on my posing too, but I was good enough just based off of like my physique to get in the top 5 in the nation. And so then I did like another show, was like a warm-up, and it was the California State Championship. And I was coming off that, and, like, yeah, I put on more size, and I put on like 18 pounds of like stage weight, right? But it was like bad stage weight, right? So I went on that stage, I barely cracked top 5 at that regional show. And I was like, but every other regional show I won, I was like, what in the world did I do wrong? Right? They said more size, right? But I look like, I ain't gonna lie, I look like a water. Yes, I look like a water buffalo up there. I was like, I did this completely wrong. And so then that's when I hired my first coach, right? And then he was like, yeah, we got to change some things. And so ever since then, I've had a coach, right? And then he took me, within 8 weeks, I turned pro, right? From like under his guidance. I think that one was maybe like a 4-week prep or something we did from that show to the next show. And again, I was going to get my pro card, but I had some posing errors and I messed up on.
Do you have to win X number of events before you can actually put in for your pro card?
Yeah, so you got to place top 1 or 2 in a regional show. Then from there, you go to whatever national show. Some national shows, only first place gets their pro card. The overall gets their pro card, or top 1 or 2. It just depends on the national show, right? And then so this second particular national show I did, I messed up on a posing error, even though my conditioning, everything was on point. And I was sitting in the second spot. And I messed up on my back pose, and I got rolled out from 2nd to 4th. And in that show, I finished 4th. And I was like, dang it, but I did improve 1 spot. Got the judge feedback. He told me, everything's good. You're perfect. You're on point. Work on your posing and stage presence. So from that show to the other show was 1 month, right? So I went back with my coach. We did our training together, but he was like, but we spent like an hour every day of posing. So this one was in Pittsburgh. So I flew to Pittsburgh. It was the North American Championships. I go there, win the whole show. I not only beat the young guys, because I put in for all age category, which open division. Then I went in for master division, which is 35 and above. So I ended up beating everybody. And I was like, okay, now I'm back in the winning category. I'm good at this. So got my pro card. I'm a national champion. I'm Mr. North America, right? So like, all right, so now I'm on cloud 9. So now I'm in the pro league, okay? The pro league is a whole complete different story because everybody now got titles. Everybody's Mr. USA, Mr. North America, so on and so forth. Then I had a rough couple years in the beginning of my pro year. Of being a pro, and then I wasn't winning. It was very frustrating, but I never gave up. I was resilient. I was like, if you can pass, if you can get to the military, if you can get through fire, you can get through bodybuilding. So I was always like this constant chase, this pursuit to get better. And around that time, that's whenever I shifted my career from, I think I was still maybe at this time, maybe a mailman or whatever I was doing. And that's when I shifted into training and running the nutrition shops full time. And that's how my business started getting started because I'm at this now, hey, I'm this national champion, sitting in the nutrition shop. People come in, they buy supplements like, hey, you need training? Whatever. So I start building my clientele up from there. Then ultimately, my clientele money or my business money superseded my nutrition shop money. So that's when I went on just, fully private. And then it was just, I was in my head, it was, it was that leap of, I had to take a leap of faith because I had that fear like, well, I'm still getting good money here, but but as soon as I left that same week, that schedule got filled up. So that was never an issue, as far as like making that transition over, so now like my business was booming, but I was still losing as a pro. Right. And then I ultimately decided to change coaches because I wasn't getting better. So I was with that my first coach for 2 years. He got me to the point where I needed to be at that time, but I just wasn't getting better, wasn't excelling. Hired my second coach, who I'm currently with. That was 2019. Here it is, 2024. So I've been with him 5 years. Amazing coach, love him to death. Took me to complete new levels. Since I've been with him, we did have a kind of a rocky start because he had to take from what that guy learned. He had to change my body because he had my body going in the wrong direction. And my coach, he was like, you know what? I got to streamline your physique. I got to do this, do that. So I just sit there and just shut up and just listen to kind of what he said. And then he guided me, got me better. And then finally he was like, you know what? I think you need to take a year off to really do this with your physique and that. And then without a second thought, okay, took a year off. And around that time, my second child was born. So it worked out perfect timing because that was 2001. So my son was born, January 5th, 2001. And I was like, right after COVID, he was a COVID baby. And so then that really gave me that time to like improve. And then when I came back in 2022, now I'm winning shows. Now I'm in the top 5. Now I'm in the top 3. Now I'm getting my rank up there. Now my name is building up. And then I had to take a medical at the end of that season. So I started picking up like sponsorships now from like supplement companies and whatever it may be. And right whenever I picked up that supplement sponsorship, I end up having to take a medical for the season because I end up getting rhabdomyolysis. So at this time, like my business is blowing up. I'm doing good in the sport. Then I had clients all over the nation. So I'm traveling. And then going from time zone to time zone, only getting maybe 3-4 hours of sleep a night, right? And then my body starts shutting down. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, right? And so I ended up getting rhabdo. And then I thought I was getting sick, kidney pains and all kind of stuff and cramps. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I ordered like all kind of tests to the VA doctor, like test me for everything. There's a history of cancer in my family. I don't know what's wrong with me, but, that my eyes were all like jaundiced looking. I was weak and tired. And I had to tell my coach. So ultimately, they did all this tests and they found out like, yeah, you have rhabdomyolysis. And I was like, what the heck is that? So they was like, yeah, your body is not recovering. You're not getting no sleep, rest, recovery. Now your blood is producing myoglobin that's toxic to your this and that. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. So now one of my biggest things that I stress to like my clients, my athletes, make sure you guys are getting rest, right? Because I've had clients that great on nutrition, great on the training, right? But they're not getting rest and recovery. And I remember what happened to my body. And I was like, okay, we got to fix that. We got to do stress mitigation. We got to get your sleeping in order, so on and so forth. So all the experience that I kind of went through helped me with my clientele a lot. So once I get all the things checked off the box, now they're able to succeed because I already went through that crazy period of my life. So now I can help them, So once I had to take a break for that season, the drive never left me. Like, all right, I got healthy. It took me like 6-7 weeks to kind of get healthy. Then I still took a little break, and I told coach, I'm going to come back. And I was like, watch. And then I was telling him, I was like, I'm going to win all these shows. I'm going to go. And this around the time they announced the Masters Olympia. I'm going to go to the Masters Olympia and just watch. He was like, okay. Right. You know, my coach, of course, he's like, he believes in me. But when you got an athlete saying, I'm going to do this, they're like, okay. Right. You know. So I literally came back, right? And then I'm, making videos, me leading up to my first show of last year, right? Making promo videos. And in these videos, I'm like saying, I'm going to win this. And then I start really doing that on these videos. My coach is like, hey, you kind of got to chill a little bit. I'm like, no, coach, I believe this, right? And so I end up racking up my first show, bam, that season, win. Right. And then everybody was like impressed. Like I was starting getting reviews. My following started kind of going up on social media, then everybody, and then my next show, bam, another win. Right. So now I'm smoking the competition. Right. Then after that, then they announced the Master Olympia selection. So my name is on the list, DaJuan Freeman going to Master Olympia. I'm just like, all right. So we had more shows that we were going to do, but my coach told me, like, hey, we're going to just focus on the Master Olympia because we want to go there and get a good placing. Right. He was like, let's try to get top 5. I was like, nah, coach, I'm going to get top 3, right? He was like, okay, we just want to bring our best. Coach, I'm getting top 3. I know it, right? So we go to Romania, and that was a whole nother, the first time being out the country since the military. And over there, like, they lost my luggage. That was a whole nother issue. And then one of the luggage, because I brought my food in an ice chest with me. I'm one of them guys, I bring everything with me, my food, my water, wherever I go, where I travel. I don't care if I got to pay extra. So I brought this big old ice chest with me to Romania, right? I paid $200, right, to get my food with me, but it was for a whole week's worth of Romania. Tell me why they lose that on the plane, right? So I'm in Romania,
they ate it.
Yeah, Romania stressing, but they found it like a day or so later. Good thing I had like dry ice in there, whatever it may be. So at least half the stuff, majority of stuff like on the bottom, stayed cool. Stuff on the top after whatever, but I still made it work, right? And then like I told you, like when I told my coach, I go in there, I'm the first one called out the Master Olympia. So Master Olympia so basically it was 400 of age 40 and above athletes, pro athletes, they applied for it, right? You put a selection list in, you put your resume, your list of shows that you won. They want to see you promoting on social media, right? So selection process. So, and the Master Olympia took a 12-year hiatus. So that's they got the regular Olympia, which is all ages. Master Olympia is 40, ages 40 plus, and it was gone for 12 years. So they brought it back last year. Again, 400 people applied for it, right? So they only picked top 20 of us from around the world. And so obviously I was one of the ones I was selected. So everybody there is like elite 40 plus year old like athletes. So you look at them like, that guy has a body of like a 20-year-old. Like everybody's amazing. I met guys from Brazil, France, Spain, UK, all over the place, right? Amazing guys, saying like our age and above, so now we're there, we're becoming friends, we're mingling. It's an amazing experience, right? And it was, again, it was just like, I was so humbled and thankful to be there, right? I never thought I would be this far in my career, something that was just a hobby, and now I'm like among the best in the world, like my age group, right? So I'll go there again, even though I tell my coach, I'm going to get number 3 in the world, I'm going to get top 3, I already just knew it, right? And so now we're battling out. I'm the first one to get called out, right, by the head judge, right? We're battling out, ultimately I did finish 3rd in the world. And he was like, how'd you know that? My coach told me. I was like, coach, I just knew it. But I'm one of the people, like, I believe in myself, right? I believe my work ethic, my sacrifice, and even like, again, what I told you like earlier in the broadcast, I use things from my past to like keep me going forward. I was like, remember you didn't pick me for that baseball team when I was 9 years old? I was like, well, I'm gonna show you now. So I'll pick every little piece, right? Remember when I was a kid, you guys made fun of me, or I was this, or you said I was goofy. I use all that, right, to fuel me whenever I train. And I just pick bits and pieces of it. And that's all I need. So I'm very like resilient, no matter what. And so I felt it like over all the stuff that I went through in my life, right? And I was like, so I put every ounce in my training and everything else. So I knew like I was going to get up there because I don't think anybody else in my mind has to drive like me, right? And so ultimately when I finished 3rd, my coach was like, you should have won, right? I was like, I know I should have won, right? And looking at all the other competition, and it was like some great, amazing guys, right? And I was like, that's okay. They're not going to give it to you my first time, but bring that Master Olympia back the second time, I'm going to win. Right. And so that's so now obviously coming to this season when they bring it back, that is my main number one goal, being number one. And I know I'm gonna get number one, because of that. And then two, and then right after that show, which is pretty dope also. So another show was 2 weeks later, and I went right the next show, win that title. Right. So I was just went on this winning spree, and so that propelled me to where I'm at now. I had, 5 pro wins, 3 wins in a row, ranked number 3 in the world. And then again, I never thought in a million years something that was just going to be a hobby, a bucket list thing, take me this far, over 9 years in the game, bodybuilding now. And now here I am, coaching, mentoring a lot of young athletes, coaching guys my age and older, trying to get them to that same level and just like leading from the front and built a successful business doing so. And then something that just started as, like I said, just as a bucket list thing. But again, it started at just me using that as an outlet, for my PTSD, for past trauma, just using that to take me where I am today is truly amazing. I never thought in a million years something like that would take me this far, And so now, like, I truly have a passion to help others, and I use that in my training or when I'm training them. Take your stuff from your childhood. Take your stuff from whatever trauma you deal with. Use that to propel you to whatever goal that you have to this day, because that's going to get you, just like I use it for myself, to fuel me to reach my goals, And so I love helping others get there, as well, So that's I feel like my mission and my purpose.
Finding your own success a little later in life. What's the window of opportunity for you as far as how long you can keep competing?
Yeah, like I said, I'm 42 now. I met amazing guys that were up there. They were 50, above 50, and they looked amazing. I was like, okay, I got another good 8 years left.
Have you been able to put on the necessary size and avoid injury?
Injury, it does come with the job. I do get weekly body work done. I got it done the other day, deep tissue work. So I get that done every week, and if not every 2 weeks, every week I get it done. Right. I do have a back injury from the Navy, so also from the waist down, 60% disabled. I do see my chiropractor on a regular, so I do like a lot of that to keep my body in the best shape as possible. Right. Getting my body work done, my chiropractic work, and then again to like no matter if I don't have a show or not, I still eat clean on a regular basis. I'll have like 1 cheat meal a week. And then, but other than that, I put good fuel in my body, right? I stay on my blood work. I stay on my vitamins, my everything, because obviously, I want to prevent injury, but I want to be healthy at the same time, and so that's like, how I do my best to prevent injury. And then while keeping my injuries low, then I'm able to still put on good quality muscle. I think if I do the timetable correct, right? I think when I turned pro in 2017 at 35 years old, I was 201 on stage. Now here I'm 42 years old. Last time on stage, I think I was like weighing like at 223 or 224. So I was able to put on 23 pounds of muscle in that time span, even at in my older age in life. So again, I credit that to like getting all my body work done and stuff of that nature, taking care of myself on a regular. And then when I train, it's like it's more mental for me, right? I gotta like be mentally like in tune. So people think I'm playing like something hardcore. I'm playing like some soft music, whatever, to kind of really feel the contraction. Kind of when I train, I want to get in tune with. So I don't go super heavy, but I really I make that medium weight feel heavy by really having that mind muscle connection. So I don't go crazy heavy in the gym, right? Because whenever you go crazy heavy in the gym, and if you do got past injuries or you're older, you're going to put yourself at higher risk. So when I trained that way, I was able to make so much improvements on like key areas that I need, and still at average a pace. Like I think the past couple of years put on 4 pounds of like lean muscle mass the past few years as well, every season. And so those are some of the tools and techniques that I use to keep like my injury level down and still put on adequate lean muscle mass in over time, even at this age.
Being a fellow older guy, because I'm 10 plus years older than you. But as far as, and you've mentioned it, there's no way to deny it. As you get older, certain natural levels in our bodies drop.
Yes.
For the approved methods of keeping your testosterone levels up, what do you recommend?
Obviously it's good like herbal stuff to like use, and they got, I think you see the commercials all the time. They have them all the time on, the sports channels,
But aren't they snake oil?
Yeah, some of them do work. Like, I did some of the research whenever I was in my, running the nutrition shops, and I did my own lab and blood work, and I kind of seen that and how many points it kind of goes up. But now, being 42 years old, I am on TRT. So my through my VA doctor, and then I get it done at a clinic down not too far from my shop. So from the gym. So I do get I do have all that stuff in check, right? And I'm monitored by my doctor, monitored by my coach. So I do that, and I make sure my levels are right where they need to be. So and I tell guys, it's not a bad thing to do that, especially as you get older. But I tell guys, that I coach and train. There's multiple ways to kind of do that. And so I do want to see a lot of guys that like sign up for my dad bod transformation that I offer online. I do want to see their lab and blood work. I want to see what their levels are looking like, because I could put them again on a diet, training regimen all day long, but their hormones are opposite. If their testosterone levels are low, this and that, right? No matter how hard they train, this and that, it's going to be hard for them to make, improvements. So once I have them get their lab and blood work, then I give them two options. Hey, this is the herbal route that you can kind of go through, or, contact your doctor, or they have clinics that kind of help guys out, and a lot of guys, they will, do that, and they go to the clinic, they're new men, they're monitored by a doctor, their levels are up, when they're in their 20s, so on and so forth, and then, so everything, like, it checks out good, and then they keep it, within the legal realms, so I recommend guys in their late 30s and above to do that, because if not, you're going to be fighting a uphill battle, so to speak.
From the opposite side of the table, though, what do women fight as they get older, as it relates to fitness and especially making improvements?
So women, it's actually one of the things they kind of deal with too is the hormonal aspect of it. Sometimes they can be going through like menopause. Some of the things they may battle is osteoporosis. So it's actually good for women to actually do resistance training, because that's the number one leading, as they get older, things that they got to deal with, osteoporosis. And that's because they never did like no resistance training whenever they were younger. So now I'm starting to get like women that come on board, and I explain to them, hey, this is, I show them the studies, like, hey, after a certain age, your bone density goes down, this is what's going to happen, this and that. And so, I explain to them like, hey, that's why this is good for you to do. You're not going to get big and bulky. You don't have the testosterone level to do that. So for women, I have to explain all that to them, and then they kind of see it at like a different light, And then, like I said, I explain the hormone stuff to them as well, because they can have a hormone imbalance. They can have a thyroid imbalance, right? So I help clients like look at all that for them to kind of be successful. And once you got everything firing or everything within the normal realms, then they're able to get great progress, because now they got the nutrition, they got the hormones balanced out, they got the training, they got everything else, and they're becoming healthy, and they're able to lose weight adequately, because I look at the whole internal, not just the whole external aspect of it.
You mentioned nutrition, obviously.
Yes.
For you, do you have a season in the year, or are you pretty much dialed in all year round?
Yes, so especially like at my level, and my coach explained this to me many years ago whenever I did start training and coaching like under him. So I used to be that guy in the off season, I would just blow up. I think I got up to like 280 at one point, right? Then I had to cut all the way down to like the low 200s, whatever. I think one season I had to go from 280 down to like 210 or something, right? A 70-pound like weight loss. And it took me forever to get in shape. It wasn't like a normal 16-week prep. I had to keep going. It took me like 6 months to get to like the level of conditioning and tightness that I needed, right? And then my current coach now told me, he was like, we're never doing that again. So now what he does is his thing is he wants to stay 8 weeks out year round. Meaning if we got to do a show in 8 weeks, we can kind of get ready, even though he still does a full 16-week prep for us. So I stayed with that mentality the whole time. Right. So I think whenever, I always check my in-body. I'm not a stickler for it. But again, I do cardio constantly. I eat clean constantly. I think like the last time I do my in bodies is like maybe 2 weeks out from a show. And then my in body is normally like, I know if I'm at that 3% body fat range, I'm perfect. And that's me being 2 weeks out from a show. So I know within the next week or two, I'm going to drop under that 3% range or whatever it may be, or still be at it or whatever. So that's like my normal goal body fat for a show to be at 3% and under. Now, the last time I did my in body was 2 weeks ago. Here I'm in the off season, and I've been off season since September. My last in body read 8.5%. So that's the highest I'll go. So I'll stay 8.5% and get all the way under 3% when I go on stage. So I won't ever go no higher. I don't technically stay in a constant state of diet, right? I check in on my coach regularly each week. And then, if he checks my weight and this and that, and we got to increase food, we will, this and that. But he keeps everything like on check and on par for me. And I like that because human nature, right? I don't have to check in with my coach. No account. I could eat a little few extra cheese, this and that. And then, so I don't ever want myself to get to that point because I've been there before and how long it took me to get back in shape. And then 2, I'm coming from that number one spot, right? So I know the number 2 guy is not doing it. He's staying on it. He wants number 1. And the number 1 guy, he wants to stay number 1. And I'm going to jump them. So I got to stay even more disciplined than them in the off season. So,
well, it's one thing to call yourself a pro. It's another thing to be a pro.
Yes.
From your family's perspective, because obviously you've got restrictions on what you have to eat each day. How does that impact your family?
You know what? Beautiful thing about my wife, in the beginning, it was a struggle for her, but now she's like 100% on board with me in a sense, like she does it with me. She diets with me, so now like, even though she's a stay-at-home mom, like she has, she put the kids, she dropped my oldest off to school, the youngest for naps or whatever it may be, my middle child to naps, and then she go in the garage, like I bought her weights. So she does her own little workout videos in the garage. She has her, and I taught her how to count her macros and all that. So my wife, she gets it, and I love that about her. And then she'll stay on point like with her diet. And then when, I get my cheat day on the weekend, and so we enjoy that together. All right, we get a cheat meal, so we plan our cheat meals together. Then after that, the kids are not worried about it because they're going to eat their little whatever food and this and that. And
that's where I was thinking about it, because as a parent myself, every one of us has been in a restaurant with our kids, and your kid leaves stuff on the plate, and you're like, oh, I'll just have a couple extra bites. And before you know it, you've pretty much eaten 3 meals because you're picking off your kids' plates.
Yes. Earlier in my bodybuilding career, that was a struggle. But where I'm at now is like, it don't even like faze me. They can have their goodies. Actually, I'm pretty funny in this. Whenever I'm in prep, right, deep in prep, I give them more goodies, right? Because that satisfies me. I'm like, eat it, right? That's like my food porn or something, right? I'm like, eat it slower, eat all these cookies, eat it. So I like do that, right? Whatever I'm in prep, and I'll deliberately buy them all the goodies, and I just watch them eat it. Then I get fulfillment that way. Then when they don't eat, I'm like, you better eat that last bite. And I tell my son, I'm going to take your tablet away. So you make him got to eat the last bite. So I mean, I do, but other than that, like, it's not a problem for me because I've been doing this for so long. But they know when I'm in that state. Then I also kind of get myself in trouble. My wife will tell you, as I get deeper in prep, even though I won't cheat, I'm online ordering everything. Cookie things that pop up on, like, they got all the goodies and the recipes. I'm saving all the recipes. I'm ordering stuff. She gets mad at me. She's like, how many cookies are you going to order from these different sites? I'll literally have hundreds of cookies over a course of like 4 months in prep coming to the house. And I haven't even touched any of them. Right. So that's where I get myself in trouble. And then now I'm in off season. I try to like, let me eat 1 or 2. Like after I get my coach's go-to meal for me is like, get in and out 2 doubles and fries. Eat that. Let me eat a couple cookies. And like, I'm telling you, I've been in off season since September. Here it is. What are we in now? March. I still haven't eaten all the cookies that I ordered from last season. Put it that way. I was like, all right, I'm going to start prepping.
I got a problem.
I'm starting prep in April, and I still haven't eaten all these cookies. So, yeah, and then even when I give it to like my kids, they eat like half of them, and then it's like, whatever. So, but other than that, I don't have no problem because my wife now is on board with me because she diets with me. And I always, here's what I do too. In the beginning, it did used to be a struggle in the beginning of me prepping. But what I did was I learned this. the end of every prep season, I take my wife or my kids on a family vacation. This past year was Cancun. Prior to that was Cabo, cruises. So I do it every season. So that actually helped my wife have an incentive to kind of get on board to work out too. Because so now it's like, now that she kind of knows that's happening and coming up, you know, now she's able to kind of stay on it. Like, I don't know when he's going to get a cruise. I don't know when he's going to buy a trip for us, you know. And then when I start getting my winnings, like from these shows and get my bonuses from the sponsors, then after that, then I start booking the shows. I start booking the vacations, and she knows this. And so now, she's like on board because she knows, like, all right, we're going to get a vacation this year. So that's another way to keep her on board too, and the kids as well, you know.
Is the Master Olympia your A event this year also?
Yeah, so I'm still waiting to hear word if it's coming back this year or not, because it was talks it was going to be bi-yearly, if they were changing the city or if bringing it back to the States, because last year it was in Romania. So they didn't actually help us with that. We had to pay for our own tickets, our own airfare, whatever. But then obviously when I did go over there, I wanted a nice size check, you know, whatever. So it covered itself. You know, but I know right now the main one I'm going for, until I hear word about the Masters Olympia, is going to be the Masters World Championships. That one is held in Pittsburgh. So that one is September 1st. So right now, that's the number one on my radar. I may do one or two warm-up shows prior to that in August. And then that one is going to be the main, you know, one that I'm going to hit. Then I may do 2 or 3 other shows after that and be done again by the end of September, so I can enjoy the holidays and take the wife and kids on another vacation. I'm thinking Hawaii this year, but I won't tell her that. I'll just surprise her.
Don't let her listen to the episode.
Yeah, don't let her listen to the episode.
What are your long-term goals as far as competitions? Is there anything, what's your next bucket list event?
You know what? You know, I still want to make it to the regular Olympia, the all-age Olympia, and I know I'm good enough to make it, right? Especially now they've been changing like the stipulations or the actual some of the rules in the category. You know, obviously in my division, I compete in pro men's physique, and it was just like for a while, like just they were judging the upper body. Now they're starting to judge the legs with it, right? And I have good legs, wheels. You know, I have good decent legs or wheels also. And so, and I've been working on those for years. So a lot of guys in my division, I go like, they don't have wheels, they don't have legs, right? It was like, oh, well, for years we've been working upper body. Well, I've always been one of those guys. I've never been afraid to run from training legs, right? So I have really good legs. So I've watched the Arnold this past weekend. A few of my teammates got bumped out because they didn't have the quality size wheels, and the other top 5 did, right? I was like, all right, I got better wheels than him. They're my teammates, they're my buddies. I love them, but you don't have wheels than I do. Our physiques are similar. So now, me knowing I have a really whole, complete physique, I feel that's going to start shuttling like a lot of guys that were winning just for one part of their body out, and now I have a better balance, right? And again, even though I'm 42 years old, I still know and feel that I have better physiques than a lot of guys in their 20s or even their 30s, right? So even though I'm doing these master shows, their majority of them are combined with open division shows. And this past last year, every show that I did, I still got first call outs, meaning an open division with all the younger guys as well. So I know I contend with the younger guys, right? Even though I'm still winning the master shows. So I still hope, you know, and my goal in my bodybuilding career is to make it to the regular all-age Olympia. Last year, I think the oldest guy last year, I think he was like 46, 47. And he's an Army vet. Me and him are good buddies. We talk online all the time. And then we had our battles in the past year before, like on stage. Me and him were like 1 and 2. And so this year he beat out one of the young guys and made it to the regular Olympia. Right. And so I was like, all right, he did it. I can do it. Right. So that's another.
Do you have to win into the regular Olympia?
Yeah. So this one is you win an open division show and you get qualified for the regular Olympia. Right. So it's not like how the other Olympia was where it's a selection board for the Master Olympia. Right. But they still go off your show resume. And I still had 3 wins prior to that one, or 4 wins prior to going to that one anyways. So which propelled me up in the selection board. But this one is you win one open division show and you're in. You know? So that's that long-term goal. But then ultimately I want a career goal, you know, I want to build my own facility. Right. And that's what I want to do. Obviously a place for all my clientele, or, you know, maybe I'm thinking out here in the IE area. And then I do have a passion. I do want to work with troubled kids. So I'm starting to look into that. Maybe start a nonprofit, kids that actually dealt with childhood trauma, PTSD. I'm thinking along the lines, I'm brainstorming, maybe start a nonprofit for them, and then, bring them in the gym as well, help them deal with their childhood trauma stuff that they dealt with, because that helped me with my past trauma and battling PTSD. So those are some of my future, goals that I want to combine into one, so to speak.
Well, I definitely appreciate you being open about all of your experiences and your life journey. To start wrapping this up, going back to the veteran aspect.
Yes.
Any last pieces of advice that you would throw out to a veteran or a first responder from your experience?
So I did have a couple stories that hit home a little bit. So one of my meal prep sponsors, it was, veteran owner operated, and, it took care of my meals and all that while I'm in prep. And the owner, he's an Army vet. Other owner's a Marine vet. And, the main owner, his name was Adrian, and then he took a turn. He went into a dark place. Like I said, we all experienced that dark place. And I used to ask about him, like, hey, how's Adrian doing? So on and so forth. Like, no, nobody's heard from him. He went dark, and they've been trying to reach out to him. And then ultimately, like, I think it was like maybe it could have been 6 months. I forgot how long the timetable was. Then all of a sudden, I guess his family announced he took his own life. So that hit kind of, close to home in a sense. And then I had another buddy, like literally a few weeks after that, we were in high school together, played football together, we were in the Navy together. He took his own life too. So my biggest thing is this, like, if you're a veteran or even coming from law enforcement, fire, EMS, if you feel yourself kind of going down a dark hole or whatever, never be afraid to reach out, right? And then people like that are around them, like, do your best to like check in on them, because you never know what they're going through, what they experience. A lot of veterans don't talk about stuff, or a lot of them like, hey, they didn't know they had trauma. Like, I didn't know I had trauma, right? And so my thing is like, those that are around them, if they see signs, seek out to them, like really knock down the door if you have to. One of my other buddies, we were in the service together, deployments together. He is my oldest son's godfather. He went dark for a year, and I kept reaching out to him. And then I finally got in contact with him. It was like a year passed. And I was like, man, you okay? I've been trying to reach out to you. He was like, yeah, I lost my job, dark place. And that same like cycle. And I was like, hey, I have a buddy named Raul Sarabia. Here's his number, contact him. So I connected, because I didn't want that to happen to him, and I seen that pattern, and I've been in that spiral before myself, even though he wasn't in physical, combat, boots on the ground, he's still seen trauma and been in trauma. And so that's my final, my final message is any vets out there, anybody like said that's been in a first responder, if you guys feel that, never be afraid to seek help. For us veterans, the Vet Center is always like there, right? Other, organizations, I know they have somebody you can reach out to. Again, let your pride down, go out there and seek help, right? And others around that notice a change in their spouse, significant other, family member, whatever, check on them and then see if they need something, because you never know. And then they could be gone in a heartbeat, taking their own lives. And I hate seeing that, with veterans and law enforcement and first responders, because I know the statistics, like every 26 minutes a veteran takes his life. They now did the studies like from that first, from the war, Iraqi war, more veterans took their lives here at home than they lost in battle over there. And that's the tragedy,
Well, I appreciate your time. I wish you the best going forward.
Thank you.
All the best on your competitions.
Thank you. And I'll come back and I'll be number one, and I'll bring my trophy with me.
I look forward to it. Thanks again.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you watching.
But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.